Well, hey everyone from Vancouver Island. I'm happy to be enjoying a Vancouver Island winter, which basically amounts to a whole bunch of Charlie Brown trees moving into the area, and then it kind of holds that way for another. So right now it's kind of like the third week of November. That's going to last for another couple months. We'll see buds here in less than 2 months, and then we'll head back into the other season. So we get the two seasons on the island. But anyways, this kind of video segues, you know, into the one about I I flunked my 65th birthday physical, and that was over 2 years ago. And it was kind of a setback and a shock, and then it was kind of take stock and just try and see, make sense of it, process it, and that. And it wasn't, I mean, you don't go in for a physical unless you're not feeling at your peak condition. So, I had my, what would you call it? Spidey senses, I guess. I'm going to call it Spidey senses. And I booked my physical for my 65th. So it was about a month after my 65th birthday. And that was, like I say, just over 2.5 years ago, or just over 2 years ago, sorry. But, the results of that were kind of a shock. And, like I said, I took stock, and yeah, it was just, I had to, deal with some things, and a lot of things, really. And that was a time in my life when my son was seriously hurt, or I should say our son was seriously hurt in an accident in Asia. And thank goodness his mom was able to go over there and bring him back home. He came back in a wheelchair, and that was a long and arduous rehab. So him and I, we rented a place that was wheelchair friendly, and we started the long process. And eventually got him back out there in the world, and he's living a good life again. And he had a near miss, and that took a big toll out of me. And it was also a time when I was kind of reaching out, to different people, and getting some insight from therapists and that. And when I told my life story of my 67 years, it was like they found it bizarre. I mean, the amount of trauma and things that I had been through. They couldn't think of. I mean, it was just. I just remembered the words. That is a bizarre life, and it has been when I think about it. And and if I look at a lot of the emotional situations that were tied to me, then yeah, that's going to reflect in physical situations and relationships and jobs and all that kind of stuff. So, but I mean, more to the point, and the reason why this is the first, real long form format on my, I flunked my 65th birthday medical physical, is you got to start somewhere. And, I had to start with looking at myself, looking at my lifestyle, looking at these different things. And I mean, it was just over a year ago when I couldn't even get out of bed because of my leg, my knee. I mean, I couldn't even move. It was the most incredibly painful thing. And of course, I trottled on back down to my doctor, who I'd just seen the year before. And he just said, come on, Les, at that time I was 66, and I was a logger for 10 years back in the 70s to the mid 80s. So I was up and down mountains carrying heavy equipment and things like that, and steep mountain terrain, and a lot of jumping, and getting out of the way of things. And that's a story in itself. But like you said, you've just wore yourself out, and decades of jogging. It's compounded, and you've got osteoarthritis in your right knee. So me being the research nut, I left there, and I was like, oh my goodness, right? So I'm trying to figure out what can I take, what kind of supplements or what types of exercise, and being a runner, whenever I felt at a low point in my life, I'd put on the running shoes. It was a very affordable style exercise to do, and just head out, typically into nature, and and just get the oxygen flowing and just take it all in. And that was my drug per se. Um, not to be confused with the drugs of the 70s and 80s. That if you grew up in that era, I mean, yeah, there's some stories there as well. But really, it just it came down to looking at lifestyle and things, and reflection, emotional reflection, and now that I look back on it all, in some ways it's even amazing that I've been able to not to succumb to maybe the vices of sadness or depression or mental illness and those types of things that in retrospect that I suffered from, and unknowingly, and didn't know, kind of suspected but didn't totally know. And so therefore, um, it took me a long time. And this self-healing journey that I'm on, I mean, the beautiful thing about today, in today's world, is the internet. And you can research and look and study. And I mean, there's a lot of YouTube is an example I use a lot for research. And in my line of work, which is real estate, there's a lot of realtors and real estate companies and things like that use that medium as well, or medium. Sorry, not median. And but anyways, I was able to kind of, over the period of a couple of years, take a look at known medical facts, known studies and things like that pertain to our health or our well-being, our emotional well-being, our physical well-being, our digestive well-being, our just our overall body, and particularly from a point of view of a senior, because now I'm heading to 68, and I am a senior. I mean, I'm closer to 70 than I am 60, so I've the odometer is turned over, and it's rapidly turning over some more. So I put on my research hat, and it helped me too. It kind of was a great distraction. It allowed me to get away from kind of going inside my head too much. And when I say going inside my head, maybe thinking too much, which I did a lot of. And sometimes that's not a great place to be, especially if you're on your own or by yourself a lot. And I mean, all I can say is thank goodness the career that I've been on the last 4 decades is sales. It's always revolved around sales. Currently, I'm a senior real estate specialist on Vancouver Island, Canada. And but I mean, I was a high level automotive sales person who really took advantage of the internet for marketing and branding and that, to sell a lot of units in a short period of time. And then I spent another, I guess, well over 3 decades in the construction related fields. And prior to that, I've sold everything from shoes to real estate, or sorry, advertising, to rock and roll. There was even a stint in my logging days, where I was I guess you'd call me a drug dealer. But anyways, it was a long storied career and a path that it's brought me here today, and made me realize that, I mean, if we don't take care of what we have right